What's up, fellow internet denizens? It's an arbitrary season meant to signify the end of a single revelation around your solar body. Awards happen around this time, so I guess I'm making my own ceremony. I read a lot, as many of you may know, and I don't read everything that came out this year, nor do I exclusively read what comes out this year, so what I'm saying is these books can be from any point in history, the only criteria being that they come from the 80 or so that I finished this year. So, without further ado, live from a crumbling apartment somewhere in the eastern half of North America, it's the first annual Dead Tree Awards! Warning, this award ceremony will contain spoilers. I will try and put this in chapters so you can avoid them. So, let's start off with the award for the best world. Lumar from Tress of the Emerald Sea. So, the seas on this planet are actually fluidized spores that will explode if hit by water. All of these spores rain down from different moons, causing different colored seas with different effects when hit by water. One will turn into spiky balls of crystal, another will cause vines to rapidly grow, and so on. There are different islands in these seas, all with their own cultures based around what these spores do. There are specific jobs on ships where you can patch holes with one type of spore or cause the ship to go faster with another type, and so on. Overall, I'd say that is pretty cool. The award for the coolest guild goes to the Order of Magi from the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I love a good guild. Whether it be adventurers banding together for a quest, a society of thieves and information brokers, or an ancient order of magicians. In the First Law, we have a rather loose order of centuries-old magicians who take power from the other side. They were all taught by a son of God, and they must obey the two laws. They can't touch the other side directly, and they can't eat human flesh. As they are ancient and mysterious, they are never quite what they seem, and, well, read and find out just what they get up to. The award for the biggest letdown goes to Star Dragon by Mike Brotherton. I think this was a really cool premise. You're in a biopunk far future, which is a premise I have only seen like 2 people actually pull off. In this future, there's a colony of giant dragons made out of plasma that the protagonists have to collect data on. However, there's too much random nudity and weird racial stuff. One guy transitions his race to black in order to appeal to his girlfriend, and the words used to describe his new look are rather sus. And another guy gets gene therapy to get a massive schlong and doesn't wear clothes at all for a big portion of the book. It was not my thing. I get it, traveling for months in space can make you go crazy, but I didn't want to read about 2 dudes just graphically hanging brain while they're dodging the ship through an asteroid belt. Also, the dragons barely showed up! What the fuck?! The award for spookiest horror goes to House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Took me 2 read-throughs and a lot of cross-referencing, but I love this book. This is the story about a movie that was seen by a blind man, but the plot twist, it doesn't actually exist. The man's drunk neighbor picks up the manuscript and tries to puzzle it out, but weird stuff starts happening to him and those around him. You want to read this? Set aside a weekend. Get some pizza, hot chocolate, and maybe a corkboard and some yarn, and enjoy. The award for the best character arc and the best protagonist goes to Wulfgar, son of Beornigar from Legend of Drizzt by R.A. Salvatore. Major spoiler alert. Skip to the time indicated if you don't want to be spoilered. When I started reading this series last year, I had a crush on Wulfgar, and I still do. I remember when I told my spouse who got me into this series, he gave me this look and said, oh no. I now understand. Wulfgar started off kind of asshole-ish and was redeemed as he fought alongside Drizzt. Then he seemingly dies as he saves his adopted dwarf family from demons. After a few books, it's revealed that he never died. He was instead kidnapped by a demon and tortured in several horrible ways, including but not limited to getting strapped onto an anvil where he would be hit with a spiked hammer, which was probably the mildest thing that happened to him. After he's saved, he has severe PTSD and slowly spirals into a drunken mess. Then he finds a job as a highwayman, slowly heals, falls in love, and adopts a child. This takes place over several books, and I cried several times. I want to hug Wulfgar. The award for the worst protagonist goes to Mordred from Mordred's Curse by Ian McDowell. When I read the first couple of sentences, I realized this would be one of those edgelord 90s books that just throws all likability out the window for the sake of shock value. I don't care what Guinevere and Gawain say. This won't be Mordred's Life of Arthur, but Mordred's Life of Mordred. Fuck them. I would have excused this guy if this were third person, but this is first person. Dude just whines and whines and whines. I get it. The world around him is shitty, but why don't you grow? I also hate the whole, oh, the story you were told was wrong. It's actually hella dark and evil when it's done poorly like this, especially with unnecessary injections like, oh, someone gets pissed on by a giant with an appendage described in great sickening detail. The award for coolest monster goes to Virenese Child from Witchstorm. I'm not going to go over the creation of this thing because that's disgusting, but the book makes it abundantly clear how this thing was created. Anyway, it's this flying spider scorpion baby that vomits flying scorpions into its enemies, causing agony as they hatch. And that's only its first form. I love drawing weird monsters, so here's a pic of its first form. If I post a second form, YouTube will not like this video. I'm too small to be monetized, but I still want to at least have this channel, right? The award for the worst couple goes to Leon and Catherine Hellstone from Under the Pendulum Sun by Jeanette Ang. If you just found out that you were a changeling, what would be the first thing you do? If you said start a carnal relationship with the man you believe to be your brother for all your life, then congratulations, you're disgusting. This ruined the book for me. I liked the idea of fairyland always existing and evangelists trying to save them. That's a cool premise. The initial sibling relationship was a little weird, but I gave it a pass because not everyone can write siblings properly. And then I found out they were building up to this. Also, when it's revealed that they are siblings after all, they just shrug and say something about sin and keep evangelizing. What the fuck? And on that unhappy note, the award for the worst ending goes to The Frankenstein Papers by Fred Saberhagen. Imagine a continuation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein where the monster survives the Arctic and tries to find and kill everyone involved with his creation one by one, all the while learning about human nature. Then, after his arc ends, it zooms out, and there's aliens watching the planet and documenting what they find. What the fuck? I forgot how the story actually ended because of this ending. You can't just throw me off like that. The award for worst fantasy goes to Fin Fancy Necromancy. Do you like Family Guy tier humor? Do you like Ready Player One and Ready Player Two? Then this is the book for you, and I don't ever want to meet you in real life. I liked the idea of a guy who could talk to the dead and not actively draining his life force, but I do not like literally everything else about this. The award for the best non-fantasy goes to The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Yes, I read non-fantasy sometimes. So, here we have the story of a teen deconstructing her Catholic faith, entering an open mic competition, and navigating a complicated family life, all through poetry. It felt so real to me and I cried a couple of times. Give it a read if you love poetry and would like to see an entire novel written solely in poems. The award for the worst sci-fi and worst dialogue goes to Triple Detente. I don't know, I don't speak Surrender, by Piers Anthony. A lot of dialogue here does not feel human. I get this is about aliens disguised as humans, but the humans that were humans did not sound human at all in some of their dialogue. Oh, this is a magazine used by humans who wish to copulate. This character who says this is 18 in the 70s. Why would he talk like his entire personality is fedoras and 4chan? The award for the best short story goes to Kaleidoscope by Ray Bradbury. So, a spaceship malfunctions and its crew discusses what to do now that their death is 100% assured. The main character is bitter that his life has until this point meant nothing. In his final moments, he decides to do something meaningful and, well, read it. It's beautiful, I cried. And now, the award for the best fantasy goes to Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. Spoilers ahead. I am unclear on how to go about this because my spouse watches these videos and he hasn't read this far yet. However, this is probably my favorite Cosmere book so far, and I cannot gush about why without spoiling it. Hey Snuggles, skip to the timestamp indicated now unless you've somehow, without my knowledge, finished Oathbringer despite your horrendous schedule. This is your final warning. Anyway, here we have one of the most beautiful flashback sequences I've ever seen where Dalinar accidentally kills his wife Evie, and that's why he is how he is. Then Cultivation herself comes out and takes away all of his memories of Evie, including her name, as payment for taking away all of his other mental torment. This made me cry so hard. You can't even hear her name. It just sounds like shh. Furthermore, we see a lot of the Shadesmar, and we get to see the Spren ecosystem and an allegedly dead Spren. We get one of my favorite conversations with Hoyd, and Elhokar is murdered in front of his own son. This book made me cry so many times. I don't want to sound like a cringeworthy fanboy, but The award for the best sci-fi and the best book that I read this year goes to The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. In the far future, a man from Earth is sent to invite a planet into the Galactic Federation. The planet is inhabited by gender-fluid people who cannot understand the fact that 1. Our protagonist is a man forever and cannot get pregnant, and 2. Women exist. This is a story not just about a man convincing a society to join a space federation, but also about race, gender, culture, and royal politics, and how all of those intertwine. I won't say too much here because I genuinely want all of you guys to read it. I have gushed about this before in my video about books I wanted to adapt, and I stand by that. Why haven't we seen this on the silver screen yet? And finally, the Treesus Died for Your Sins Award for the worst book, worst horror, and worst antagonist goes to Lair of the White Worm by Bram Stoker. I decided to try reading this because I love Dracula and I wanted to try something else by Bram Stoker. Instead of a cool gothic monster book, I got Old Man Flies Kite, News at 11, with a side of mongooses, racism, an undefined monster, not in the cool eldritch way, and weird pseudoscience. It's not funny bad like The Room or unnecessary bad like Batman v Superman. It's just boring bad, and that's the worst kind of bad. How did the man who wrote one of my favorite books growing up write this? I would say actual trees died for this book, but I read Lair of the White Worm on Project Gutenberg, so I'm saying instead that Treesus himself died for this sin. I read so many more books this year, but I don't have the time or energy to go in depth with everyone here, so I'll link my story graph below, and you guys can explore it if you'd like. I've been Alien Daydreamer, and I am out. Merry Christmas, Happy Yule, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year. Bye!